The morning started like any other Tuesday. I was in the kitchen, brewing my usual black coffee, watching the sunrise paint our backyard in soft golden hues. Sarah had already left for her early shift at the hospital, and the house felt peacefully quiet. Our house? The one we'd bought together 7 years ago, the one where we'd planned to raise our children, the one where every corner held a memory. I should have known something was wrong when I heard the car doors slamming in our driveway at 8:30 in the morning. Through the kitchen window, I watched a middle-aged woman in a sharp business suit walk confidently toward our front door, followed by a young couple holding hands and looking around with the unmistakable excitement of first-time homebuyers. My coffee mug froze halfway to my lips. The doorbell rang. "Good morning," the woman announced when I opened the door, her smile bright and professional. "I'm Linda Morrison from Premier Realty. We're here for the 9 o'clock showing." I stared at her, then at the eager couple behind her, then back at her perfectly styled hair and clipboard full of documents. "I'm sorry," I said slowly, "but there must be some mistake. This house isn't for sale." Linda's smile faltered for just a moment before snapping back into place. She glanced down at her paperwork, then back up at me with the patience of someone who dealt with confused homeowners regularly. "Are you Max Welchin?" she asked. "Yes, but then there's no mistake. Your husband Richard listed the property with us last week. Didn't he mention it?" The world seemed to tilt slightly on its axis. The coffee mug slipped from my fingers, shattering against the hardwood floor. We'd spent 3 weekends refinishing ourselves. The couple behind Linda exchanged concerned glances. My husband?" I managed to say. "Richard Chun. He signed all the paperwork on Friday. Beautiful property, by the way. The listing photos really don't do justice to that renovated kitchen of yours." I felt something cold and sharp settle in my stomach. Richard, my partner of 8 years, husband of 3. The man who'd proposed to me in this very living room, promising we'd build our life together in this house. The man who'd been acting strangely distant for the past month, taking phone calls in the garage and staying late at the office more frequently than usual. I need to make a phone call," I said, my voice sounding strange and hollow even to my own ears. "Can you give me just a minute?" Linda checked her expensive watch with visible irritation. "The appointment is scheduled for 9 o'clock, Mr. Chin." The buyers drove quite a distance to see the property. "Please," I said, and something in my tone must have conveyed the desperation I was feeling because her expression softened slightly. "5 minutes," she said. "We'll wait in the car." I closed the door and immediately grabbed my phone, dialing Richard's number with shaking fingers. It went straight to voicemail. His cheerful recorded voice felt like a mockery. "Hey, you've reached Richard. Leave a message and I'll get back to you soon." I tried again. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. My hands were trembling as I scrolled through our recent text messages. Nothing unusual. Nothing about selling our house. Nothing about turning our entire life upside down without bothering to mention it to me. A knock at the door interrupted my panic. Linda's face appeared in the side window, pointing at her watch. I had 2 choices: let these strangers tour my home while I processed this betrayal, or figure out what the hell was happening. Neither felt right, but I couldn't just stand there bleeding on the hardwood floor. Richard had apparently decided to sell out from under me. "Come in," I said, opening the door with what I hoped passed for composure. For the next 30 minutes, I watched Linda guide the young couple through every room of our house, pointing out features Richard and I had chosen together. The granite countertops we'd debated over for weeks. The bathroom tiles Sarah had special ordered from Italy. The built-in bookshelves Richard had insisted on for his collection of vintage mysteries. "The master bedroom has excellent natural light," Linda was saying as they climbed our stairs. "And as you can see, the sellers have maintained the property beautifully." Sellers. Plural. As if I'd had any involvement in this decision. I followed them like a ghost haunting his own life, listening to Linda describe our home's investment potential and desirable neighborhood characteristics. The couple, Tom and Jennifer, I learned were enchanted by everything. They loved the kitchen island where Richard and I had shared countless morning conversations. They gushed over the garden where Sarah had taught me to grow tomatoes. They were already planning where to put their dining room table in the space where Richard and I had hosted our friends for game nights and dinner parties. The asking price is very competitive for this market, Linda was telling them as we returned to the living room. Properties in this neighborhood typically sell within 2 weeks. When would we be able to close? Jennifer asked, her eyes bright with excitement. Linda consulted her paperwork. The sellers are motivated for a quick sale. We could potentially close within 30 days if financing goes smoothly. 30 days. Richard planned to uproot our entire life and relocate me somewhere unknown in 30 days. And he hadn't bothered to discuss it with me. After the potential buyers left, gushing about how perfect the house was for their needs, Linda lingered in our entryway. Mr. Chan, she said carefully, I've been doing this for 15 years and I have to ask. You seem surprised by this whole process. Did you and your husband discuss the sale? I almost laughed at the understatement. You could say that. Because if there's some kind of marital discord here, I need to know. We can't proceed with a sale if both owners aren't in agreement. Both owners? I repeated. Well, yes. The property is in both your names, according to the deed. Your husband assured me you were fully on board with the sale, just not available for the initial listing appointment due to work commitments. The cold feeling in my stomach was spreading throughout my entire body. Richard had lied to the real estate agent. He'd signed paperwork to sell our jointly owned home without my knowledge or consent, then fabricated a story about my absence. I need to see those papers, I said. Linda hesitated. I really should speak with your husband first. The house is half mine, I interrupted, and my voice carried an edge I didn't recognize. I have a right to see any documents pertaining to its sale. She sighed and opened her leather portfolio, withdrawing a thick stack of papers. I recognized Richard's signature immediately, bold and confident, exactly like the man I thought I knew. The listing agreement was dated the previous Friday. According to the documents, Richard had provided my verbal consent for the sale and explained that I was extremely busy with work commitments but fully supportive of their decision to relocate. Their decision. Our decision. As if I'd been part of it. The asking price made my breath catch, $847,000. Nearly double what we'd paid for the house 7 years ago. Richard was planning to walk away with over $400,000 in profit, and apparently he intended to do it without my involvement. Where did my husband say we were moving? I asked Linda. She flipped through her notes. He mentioned something about relocating for his job. Portland, I think, or maybe Seattle, somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. Portland. Richard had never mentioned Portland. He'd never mentioned anywhere, actually. As far as I knew, he was perfectly happy with his position at the accounting firm here in Denver. After Linda left, promising to clarify things with Richard before proceeding further, I sat alone in our living room, surrounded by the evidence of our shared life. Wedding photos on the mantle, books we'd bought together scattered across the coffee table. The couch where we'd spent countless evenings watching movies and planning our future. A future that apparently didn't include me having any say in where we lived. I tried calling Richard 6 more times over the next hour. Each call went straight to voicemail. I texted him, "Call me immediately. Emergency." No response. By noon, I was pacing through our house like a caged animal, seeing everything differently now. Was Richard planning to take the antique armoire his grandmother had left him? What about our joint bank accounts? Our shared credit cards? Had he already made arrangements to transfer our lives to Portland without consulting me about any of it? The more I thought about it, the more details started clicking into place. His recent secrecy. The late nights at the office that I'd attributed to busy season. The phone calls he'd take in the garage or on walks around the neighborhood. The way he changed the subject whenever I asked about his day. Richard wasn't just selling our house behind my back. He'd been planning an entire life change without me. At 2 o'clock, I made a decision that would change everything. I called Premier Realty and asked to speak with Linda Morrison. Mr. Chen, she said when she came on the line, I've been trying to reach your husband, but his phone seems to be going straight to voicemail. That's actually why I'm calling, I said, settling into the kitchen chair where I'd eaten breakfast just hours earlier, back when my life still made sense. I need to inform you that I do not consent to the sale of our house. Silence on the other end of the line. I'm sorry, Linda said finally. I do not consent to selling our house. I never agreed to it, I wasn't consulted about it, and I want the listing removed immediately. Mr. Chen, I'm going to need to speak with your husband about this. He's the one who signed the listing agreement. The house is in both our names, I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside my chest. According to Colorado law, both owners must consent to a sale. Since I'm explicitly refusing consent, you cannot legally proceed. Another pause. I could hear Linda shuffling papers. This is unusual, she admitted. I'll need to speak with my broker and get back to you. You do that, I said. In the meantime, I want that listing removed from all websites immediately. After I hung up, I sat in the silence of our kitchen and tried to process what was happening. My husband had betrayed me in a way I never could have imagined. He'd made decisions about our most significant shared asset without including me. He'd lied to professionals about my consent and involvement. But what hurt most was the realization that he'd been planning to uproot my entire life without caring enough to discuss it with me. I needed proof of what he'd done. I needed documentation of his deception. And I needed to understand exactly how far his betrayal extended. I started with our shared computer, the one we used for paying bills and managing our finances. Richard had always been the one to handle our accounts. I trusted him completely, which now felt incredibly naive. What I found made me physically sick. Richard had been researching Portland real estate for 3 months. His browser history showed dozens of property searches, neighborhood guides, and cost of living comparisons. He looked into job opportunities at accounting firms in the Portland area. He'd even researched moving companies and storage facilities. But the worst discovery was buried in his email drafts folder, a resignation letter addressed to his current employer dated for next month. Richard had been planning this move for months without saying a single word to me about it. I printed everything. Every real estate search, every job inquiry, every piece of evidence that showed the scope of his deception. Then I called our bank. I'd like to place a hold on any large withdrawals from our joint accounts, I told the customer service representative. I'll need to verify your identity first, she said, and walked me through the security questions. Has there been any unusual activity on our accounts recently? I asked once she confirmed I was authorized to make changes. Let me check, she said, and I could hear typing in the background. Actually, yes. Your husband made a significant transfer yesterday. $25,000 from your joint savings to a new individual account under his name only. The betrayal just kept getting deeper. Can you reverse that transfer? I asked. Since it was transferred to an account in his name and he's an authorized user on the joint account, the transfer was legitimate. However, I can place restrictions on future large transactions requiring both account holders' signatures. Please do that, I said. And I want to be notified immediately of any attempt to make withdrawals over $500. After securing our finances, I called my sister Sarah, who was between shifts at the hospital. Maxwell, she answered. What's wrong? You sound terrible. Richard is selling our house without telling me, I said, and hearing the words out loud made them feel even more surreal. What do you mean selling your house? Like, as a surprise? No, Sarah. I mean, he listed it with a real estate agent, scheduled showings, and told them I was fully on board with moving to Portland. I found out this morning when buyers showed up at our door. Silence. Then, are you serious? Dead serious. And it gets worse. I told her about the months of secret research, the resignation letter, the money transfer. With each detail, I could hear her anger building. That son of a bitch, she said finally. Maxwell, you need to protect yourself. This isn't just deception. This is financial manipulation. I know. I've already secured our bank accounts and stopped the house sale. But Sarah, I don't understand how someone I've been with for 8 years could do this to me. Because he's a coward, she said bluntly. He made a decision about his life, and instead of having an adult conversation with his husband, he decided to manipulate you into compliance. This is emotional abuse, Maxwell. Hearing it called abuse made something crystallize in my mind. Richard hadn't just betrayed my trust, he tried to control my entire future without my consent. What are you going to do? Sarah asked. I'm going to fight back, I said, and I meant it. The rest of the afternoon was spent preparing for war. I contacted a family law attorney and scheduled an emergency consultation for the next morning. I changed all our joint account passwords to ones only I knew. I documented everything, screenshots, printed emails, bank statements, the real estate listing. Most importantly, I removed our house from the market and sent a certified letter to Premier Realty stating unequivocally that I did not consent to any sale. Richard finally came home at 8 o'clock that evening, later than usual. I was sitting at our kitchen table with all my evidence spread out before me waiting. Hey babe, he said casually, dropping his keys on the counter like it was any other day. How was your Tuesday? I stared at him for a long moment, this man I'd shared my life with, and realized I was looking at a stranger. Interesting, I said finally. I met some nice people today. Tom and Jennifer. They're very excited about buying our house. Richard went very still. I watched the color drain from his face as he processed what I'd said. Maxwell, he started, but I held up my hand. Before you say anything, I want you to know that I've removed our house from the market, secured our bank accounts, and documented everything you've done over the past 3 months. He opened his mouth, then closed it, then opened it again like a fish gasping for air. I can explain, he said finally. Really? I stood up, gathering the papers from the table. You can explain how you plan to sell our home, move to Portland, and start a new job without mentioning any of it to me? You can explain how you transferred $25,000 from our joint account into your personal account? You can explain how you lied to a real estate agent about my consent. It's not like that, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Then what is it like, Richard? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you tried to steal half of everything we own and relocate me against my will. He slumped against the counter, and for the first time since I'd known him, Richard looked genuinely defeated. I got a job offer, he said quietly, in Portland, a really good one, partnership track at a prestigious firm. Congratulations, I said coldly. When did you plan to tell me? I was going to tell you. I wanted to have everything arranged first. I wanted to present it as a complete package so you wouldn't worry about the details. Details like where we'd live, like selling our home, like me leaving my job and all my friends and family. I thought once you saw the opportunities there, you'd be excited about it. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. So you decided to manipulate me into compliance instead of treating me like an equal partner in our marriage. That's not what I was doing. That's exactly what you were doing. My voice echoed through our kitchen, bouncing off the walls we'd painted together. You made a unilateral decision about our entire future, and then took concrete steps to implement it without my knowledge or consent. You lied to professionals about my involvement. You moved our money around without telling me. You treated me like a possession to be relocated rather than a person with my own agency. Richard's face crumpled. I was scared you'd say no. So you decided not to give me the choice? He didn't answer, which was answer enough. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice deadly calm. You're going to call your potential employer in Portland tomorrow and decline their offer. You're going to transfer that $25,000 back into our joint account. And you're going to begin rebuilding the trust you've destroyed, assuming that's even possible. Maxwell, please, I'm not finished, I interrupted. You're also going to apologize to Linda Morrison for wasting her time and lying about my consent. You're going to reimburse her for any marketing costs she's already incurred. And you're going to explain to anyone who asks exactly why our house is no longer for sale. Richard looked like I'd slapped him. You want me to humiliate myself? I want you to take responsibility for your actions. There's a difference. He was quiet for a long moment, staring at the floor. When he looked up, his eyes were red. What if I can't do it? He asked. What if I can't turn down the job? What if this is the opportunity I've been waiting for my entire career? Then you'll be making a choice, I said simply. Between your career and your marriage. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed again, and this time it was bitter. You think what you did to me was fair? You think planning to uproot my entire life without consulting me is fair? I thought you want what's best for us. What's best for us is honesty, communication, mutual respect. You've demonstrated none of those things. Richard sat down heavily at our kitchen table, his head in his hands. I've ruined everything, haven't I? You've certainly damaged it, I agreed. Whether it's ruined depends on what you do next. The next morning, I met with the family law attorney, Patricia Rodriguez, in her downtown office. She was a sharp woman in her 50s who listened to my story without judgment, taking detailed notes. What your husband did was legally questionable and ethically reprehensible, she said when I finished. Fortunately, you acted quickly to protect your interests. Is our marriage salvageable? I asked. That's not a legal question, she said gently. That's a personal one. But I can tell you that this level of deception often indicates deeper issues with respect and communication. She helped me draft a legal separation agreement that would protect my assets and interests while Richard and I figured out our future. It wasn't what I'd wanted, but it was what I needed. When I got home that afternoon, Richard was sitting in our living room with his laptop open and his phone beside him. I called Portland, he said without looking up. I declined the position. And I transferred the money back. All of it plus interest. And Linda Morrison? I apologized and paid her cancellation fee. She was not pleased with me. I sat down across from him, noting how small he looked in our oversized armchair. What now? He asked. Now we figure out if there's anything left to save, I said. But Richard, I need you to understand something. What you did wasn't a mistake or poor judgment. It was a betrayal of everything our marriage is supposed to represent. I know. Do you? Because you tried to steal my agency, my home, and my future. You treated me like an obstacle to your ambitions rather than your partner. I was wrong, he said, and for the first time he sounded like he truly meant it. I was selfish and scared and wrong. Fear doesn't excuse betrayal, I told him. And selfishness doesn't excuse manipulation. What can I do to fix this? I pulled out the separation agreement Patricia had helped me draft. Richard's face went white when he saw the legal letterhead. You can start by reading this, I said. We're going to live separately while we figure out if our marriage can survive what you've done. You can stay in the guest room or find your own place, I don't care which. But we're done sharing finances and we're done making decisions together until you prove you understand what partnership actually means. Maxwell, please, this isn't revenge, Richard. This is self-preservation. You've shown me that you're willing to manipulate and deceive me to get what you want. I can't trust you with my life until you prove you've changed. He read through the agreement in silence, his face growing paler with each page. How long? He asked finally. However long it takes, I said. Maybe 6 months. Maybe 6 years. Maybe forever. You said we could fix this. I said we could try. But Richard, trust isn't something you can rebuild with apologies and promises. It's something you have to earn back through consistent actions over time. That evening, Richard packed a bag and moved into our guest room. The house felt different with this new distance between us, bigger somehow, but also emptier. Over the following weeks, I watched him struggle with the consequences of his choices. He started individual therapy to understand why he'd thought his approach was acceptable. He opened his phone and computer to me completely, giving me access to everything. He wrote letters to our friends and family explaining what he'd done and taking full responsibility. But the hardest part was watching him confront the fact that his actions had fundamentally damaged our relationship, possibly beyond repair. 3 months later, I was sitting in our backyard garden, the one Sarah had helped me plant, when Richard joined me with 2 cups of coffee. I've been thinking, he said, setting my cup on the patio table between us. About Portland. About that job. My stomach tightened. What about it? I realized something in therapy. I didn't want the job because I was passionate about the work or because it would make me happy. I wanted it because it felt like proof that I was successful. He sat down across from me, but kept his distance. I was willing to destroy our marriage for a job I didn't even really want, he continued. How messed up is that? Pretty messed up, I agreed. I don't know if you'll ever forgive me, he said quietly. I don't know if I deserve forgiveness, but I want you to know that I understand now what I almost threw away. I sipped my coffee, studying his face. He looked older somehow, worn down by months of confronting his own behavior. What do you understand? I asked. That you're not just my husband. You're my partner. And partners don't make unilateral decisions about their shared life. Partners don't manipulate each other. Partners don't lie. And I violated every principle that marriage is supposed to be built on. I treated you like an accessory to my life instead of the most important person in it. It was the most honest thing he'd said since this whole nightmare began. What do you want, Richard? I asked. I want to earn your trust back, he said. I want to prove that I can be the partner you deserve. I want to spend however long it takes showing you that I understand what I did wrong. And if it takes the rest of our lives, then that's what it takes. I finished my coffee in silence, watching the sun set behind our fence. Our fence around our yard, behind our house. The house that was still ours because I'd been strong enough to fight for it. We'll see, I said finally. 6 months after the terrible Tuesday morning, Richard and I started couples counseling. 6 months after that, he moved back into our bedroom. It wasn't easy and it wasn't quick, but slowly, carefully, we began rebuilding what he had broken. But I never forgot the lesson he taught me that day, that trust, once shattered, leaves scars even after it heals. And that sometimes the people we love most are capable of betraying us in ways we never imagined possible. The house we almost lost became a symbol of what we'd fought to save, not just our marriage, but our partnership, our mutual respect, and our shared future. And every morning when I wake up in our bedroom, in our house, in the life we chose together, I remember that I'm strong enough to fight for what's mine. Even when the threat comes from the person sleeping beside me. Maxwell's story reminds us that home isn't just about 4 walls and a foundation, it's about trust, respect, and the mutual decisions that build a life together. Sometimes protecting what matters most means being willing to fight for it, even when the battle is with someone you love.